Are there any questions from the council on the walk bridge updates, or is there anything that you guys feel you need to let us know?
I just have an administrative point. Those letters should be shared with the whole council.
Okay, they were the letters that Pam...
Oh, it was just using the
Yes.
draft that you put?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't, okay, but nevertheless, maybe that could
I
be
will let her
posted
know that.
on the website.
Rich, do you feel there's any updates you feel would be helpful from the last
You
month?
want me to say?
We can talk a little bit quickly about it. I mean,
The
again,
department requested and was granted a waiver in the opening hours for walk drawbridge. It's now 8 hours notice, once between the hours of 10 and 2 weekdays, 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. weekdays, and then over the weekend between 9 p.m. Friday and 3 p.m. Monday. We have been operating the bridge on manual mode, and knock on wood, the last 6 openings have been both successful without incident and getting quicker and quicker. Most recently, last weekend, we opened it 4 times for river traffic for Divine Brothers upriver.
How big is the manual crew that's required?
It's about 25 people.
And for how long?
Well, how long does the opening take?
Well, yes, how long, so how long are they employed doing the opening, waiting around, and then closing it up again?
We generally show up, half hour to 45 minutes before the scheduled opening. The opening itself takes about 20 minutes. We've gotten down to that for the last couple. And with the tug traffic, they go up, they drop their barge, they come back. So it's about anywhere between 35 and minutes and an hour till they come back. Then it's another 20 minutes to, make the bridge back.
So it's a couple hours?
Oh, yeah.
3 to 4 hours
3 to 4 hours.
Oh, yeah.
from total.
That's
Total.
on site, so, we have
Right,
to get.
yeah, and then you have to get people there. Okay.
Mhm.
And that's 25 people?
Correct.
So my question would be, is that a 4-hour minimum shift? Is it a 7-hour minimum shift? Or is that a supplemental charge? And is the charge
they're
being
being-
shared
well-
65-35?
That's a good question on that one. I can tell you, there are some managers there, we're not getting paid any extra to be there.
You get paid enough.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And then the folks who are union are paid time and a half. And I don't know how that breaks down.
I'd have to assume it's the normal operating portion.
Yeah, I'd assume as well as the 65-35 split.
Right.
But they're all on time and a half?
We'll look at it.
Except the manager.
So, that's interesting. People can't be scheduled on this, or I guess not, it's in the middle of the night, it's on the
It's a
weekends.
notice.
it's-
8-hour notice now.
The problem is that the tugs have to work on the high tide to get through. So
Right.
it's not like we know we're gonna get every Saturday at such and such an hour. It
Got
flows
it.
through
Okay.
the-
I understand,
And some
yeah.
weekends, they're not there.
Be cheaper to finish the dredging than.
I don't think so. I don't think so, from my previous life.
Okay.
No.
All right, thank you, that's very helpful.
You got it.
And
I
also-
don't think people understand what this means in terms of time and effort and obviously expense. Because having 25 people there for 4 hours at time and a half is a lot of money. Yeah, and, okay.
And most people are aware the relief we got actually was from the Coast Guard.
Mhm.
And they've been quite receptive to understanding the circumstances and will work with us very well.
So absent of relief coming from the federal government in the way the Super Sandy funding request, is this pretty much the MO from here on out, or?
No, John Bernick
Yep.
of Rich's shop chaired a strategic, I forget what STAT stands for.
Strategic Tactical Action
Team. And we held a series of field visits with consultant HNTB, who have developed a series of recommendations for immediate, short-term, and long-term action. The immediate recommendations we hope to implement within a matter of months, and we believe that should allow us to downsize that force to probably, I'm going to guess, 15. The short-term actions we hope should allow us to get close to what we used to be in the old days, 6 to 10. And then, of course, the long-term actions, we have not scheduled yet because it requires further investigation.
Long-term meaning replacement?
Long-term meaning serious and significant rehabilitation to the pier that it turns around and the rollers and spoke system. So it's not replacement.
That would be more medium-term,
Well,
thinking
it's-
long-term is replacement?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're still looking at it on what options exist, and, CDOT's working with their consultants to
We're
make that
still committed to
determination.
replacing it.
Yeah.
So it's what actions make sense
Right.
before we actually are able to do that.
Well, that's a 10-year process, pretty much.
Well, we've looked at accelerated bridge techniques that may allow us to do something a little different. It's still being evaluated. But
I mean, looking at the map, the hard part to me seems to be building alongside of the existing bridge or close to it with buildings on either side.
well, a lot depends on the, what kind of bridge design we end up with. So we're looking at a bascule, I think, which has its own challenges, but there are a number of possibilities, and among the factors we consider is the time it takes to do it. And the constructability is key to that. So
And I would think eminent domain.
it would be very hard.
Right.
With a bascule bridge, though, you're not actually thinking about building something next to it and rerouting, are you? You're thinking about building something somewhere else, bringing in pieces and replacing what's there
That would be-
without moving the tracks. So you go down to 2 tracks, do something on one side, and then do the other side. So they're not talking about eminent domain.
Is
That's on
that
That's on the table,
feasible?
yes.
And you'd still be
devil's in
able to
the
open the
details,
bridge
but-
while you're doing it?
Okay.
No.
Right.
No.
No.
That's the key.
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's still preliminary.
Right.
All the options are on the table. None of the options are easy to implement, be it renewal in place, doing the bascule in a phased operation, making a runaround. So that's why, CDOT has their consultants on board and are actively working on this.
If I could, oh, yeah, Terry, I'm sorry.
Besides working on this, I work on Connecticut Fast Track and the other rail corridor. And I have to tell you, what I have seen on Connecticut Fast Track, you've already won 2 awards, national awards for what you've done. Good bridge replacement, that's just incredible to see, Flatbush Avenue and what you've done at Cedar Street. DOT is advanced in terms of replacing bridge. Well, we saw it in Southington,
Yep,
closed for a weekend, put up a new bridge.
right.
So
Yep.
I think the technology's changed. You guys are on top of your game. So I'm very impressed with what you've been able to do on Fast Track, and I just wanted people to know that, because I think it's the same
Thank you very
technology is
much.
going to be used there.
And we're trying to see what the best options like that are here. Thank
Is
you.
is something like that feasible? That it would be done in a matter of months,
That's why we don't look.
or less?
We think it can be done much more quickly than we had originally planned, but the details of that phasing and putting in a new style bridge, we don't know yet. But we're trying to do something like that.
And for the record, two council members have arrived, Jeff Marin and Ms. Fuchs. And again, I'm sorry, Rich, I don't
Go
want to
ahead.
push those folks off. So if I could just add one, the immediate measures that would reduce the staff from 25 to 15, are they, is that a quick, is that something to give us a quick update on what the immediate measures?
Yeah, what happens is, and it's a little tough to conceptualize, but under each miter rail, there is a roller on an arm. And so as it comes up, pushes the miter rails up. We're going to change out the rollers to put in bigger rollers, which will give us more lift, which is one of our problems. And that is one of a series of mechanical operations that all come off a common shaft. So we're going to replace the mechanism that activates those rollers with linear actuators, which you can think of as like an electric driven screw jack. That will relieve essentially 40% of the operations, mechanical operations, off of that shaft, and significantly the ones that have given us problems, so that those we can individually calibrate each of the linear actuators and do that offline. In the short term, we're looking to make that part of the PLC, the programmable logic controller. So in the immediate term, somebody will be activating a button, but then we'll tie it into the overall logic of the bridge, which will again reduce significantly the amount of manpower.
More automatic.
Okay?
I know you guys did a tour recently for
Mhm.
some people in the media, and I was going to ask if you do another one, if you've got something scheduled, that you could extend the invitation to the council.
I think it's unlikely we'll be doing that again. That was a lot of effort, and it was a great deal of care had to be taken. It's an area that's inherently hazardous. But we are thinking of trying to do some, I think, video and other ways of showing people how this is working, because it's not something you can do often or very frequently. So.
Right, okay.
Does any council members have any additional questions on the walk bridge?
I was wondering if Metro North, in conjunction with, let's say, Norwalk, had put together an emergency action plan or an incident action plan, so that if it gets stuck again, you automatically have how to deal with it. Remember, John, we were trying to do these things.
We actually have the guidelines for our actions upon failure. One of the gating items is the expense to have buses on standby, which is the real critical issue here. The timing of an opening failure is critical on the response we can provide. And again, it goes back to the fact that buses can only carry a very limited number of people. So a bus bridge across the 4 tracks of Norwalk really isn't an effective long-term solution. And right now, there really is no way to protect buses to the magnitude we need to make a more seamless recovery in a more timely manner. Right now, the strategy is to ensure that every opening is effectively pre-planned and controlled, and we have a control process in place whereby Glenn Hayden himself needs to review and approve the opening. Once he approves it, I review it and I approve it, and we make sure we have the adequate forces in place, along with adequate response, equipment, tooling, such that if we come into a condition, we can manually do the tasks that the electrical systems on the bridge do. And that's one of the reasons why it really requires such a large workforce there. It's not only to activate manually the controls, but provide the adequate response upon a failure.
For each opening, we set up a emergency jacking system so that if the bridge doesn't reseat properly, we have the jacks in position and we can just quickly get it back. So, part of that is setting up the jacks, testing them, getting ready, and then so far, tearing them down and locking them away because we haven't had to use them.
So I hate to take up a lot more time with this because...
Could I just add to that? Though we actively discussed, what we might do to put something in place for emergencies. And luckily, as Glenn and John said, we're getting to a more reliable situation because only the most catastrophic likelihood would you really think about doing some of the things you'd have to do. In fact, we're currently in the process of beginning to replace our bus fleet, so we can and we will look at the possibility of retaining a contingency fleet that you'd have to maintain service ready. We'll think about it seriously, but the reality is you can't get operators. So if you had buses, so as Walk Bridge becomes more reliable, where would you stage a fleet that you could use when an emergency can occur anywhere? So we're thinking about every possibility, but some of them really just don't make sense in the long run.
I think the most important low-hanging fruit is really timely communication so that commuters can make a choice not to get on the train and get stranded. So that's an improvement that's needed over the past
That's with everything.
incidents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, John,
One other
Lombardi,
thing-
as usual, I've gotten stranded a few times. So.
One other thing of note is that the now restricted opening hours keep us well clear of rush
peak.
hours.
Yeah.
So it was designed specifically to push those things to off-peak hours, and the prohibition of only one opening between 10 and 2 kind of takes the barge traffic out of the equation because the tides very rarely hit that so that they can do their work. So they tend to be now weekends.
So,
Good, thank you.
one final question, if I might. This is only one of 4 swing bridges in Connecticut.
No, it's only one.
I'm sorry, I thought there were 4 bridges.
He's talking about the movable bridges.
Movable bridges.
This-
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
this one
Movable
swings,
bridges,
the other
sorry.
ones do
Yes.
this.
Okay,
Yes.
so the others are all different in design.
Mhm.
That's
Correct.
good to know. Is there any indication that any of the other three will suffer any problems that are similar to this? In other words, problems of a magnitude that shut down the line?
No.
They're all running
That's a
perfectly well.
qualified no. The one in Bridgeport is pretty new. It was replaced in the 90s, and we have very few failures there. Every one of the other four have 2 leafs, so if we lose a single leaf, we still have 2 tracks to operate train service on.
Okay.
So that takes us out of that catastrophic scenario.
Good.
That being said, the other 3 are almost as old as Walk.
Right.
And each one has its own little foibles which we're dealing with.
So the one in Westport was built in 1905, I believe, so.
Yep.
And that was also included in the original proposal for the Sandy relief funds.
Yes.
We want to expedite all 4.
No. Norwalk was the only one in the Sandy relief funds.
Right,
Yeah, the New Haven, yeah, the New Haven Yard backup generation.
Yard and then the
And-
power online.
right.
No other bridges were included in the 3 submissions we made.
I'm sorry, I think Jeff had one last
Yeah,
question.
so just to follow that out, maybe I missed it. So do you have a protocol for opening and closing those other bridges as well? And do you have a plan in place if something were to happen for any of the other bridges? Yes, you'd only lose 2 of the 4 tracks or whatever else it might be, but that would still, given some of the issues that you've got with the loss of your ability to switch trains that is still outstanding and other issues, you may have people stranded on various tracks, stuck behind 2 of those 4 tracks.
Each one has its own different set of operating conditions. The one over the Housatonic River, which is Devon, there is the ability to run around pretty much and make every station stop with the exception of Stratford. So it really affects Stratford alone if we lose one of the leafs. The one in Bridgeport, there are interlockings on both sides, so we can lose a leaf and really run completely around everything. The one in Westport it affects a number of stations. One of the nice things is it's a little less traffic congested, and from both the highway situation and the trains, because we're east of Stamford. The one that has the biggest potential for impact is Coscob in Greenwich. A, because we run more trains down there, and B, because that's the bridge we open by far the most. Now, Coscob, we are continuing our maintenance program on to keep it up to snuff. And as a matter of fact, we have a program with the Department of Transportation to replace the miter rails, install expansion rails, and put in proximity sensors, which will make it more robust. It doesn't deal with the structure itself, but it is the next one we're turning to.
So, in other words, from a commuter point of view, the problems we've had at Norwalk, you're looking at the other bridges and you're making sure that we don't get to that point through upgrades and active maintenance.
Yes. And Norwalk, by virtue of the fact that it's a 4-track swing bridge, is super critical. The people who the DOT have engaged HNTB, they are nationwide experts in movable bridges, and they tell me they do not know of another 4-track swing bridge in the country. So
We're number 1.
Yep.
First and
We're
last.
stuck with it.
All right. Well, no, we're not, because we're going to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the walk bridge before we move to the Stamford parking station presentation? Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much.